But for Friday, we have James Madison at Louisville. Cardinals and Dukes believe both won on their opening weekends. And yeah, it's going to be a battle of 1-0s. We're going to go with the Cardinals. They're favored by 13.5 points. That was an interesting line already to bring up. We only bring up the lines just kind of give us an indicator of where the game may go. Not that we don't, look frown upon or, criticize people that are in that realm, but we just bring it up just so we use it as a reference of what to expect for this upcoming weekend. And for that, this weekend, this game, that's an interesting one because James Madison pretty competitive no matter what. Wonder if that line is going to be broken. And we move into NIU at Maryland. The Terps somewhat struggled against FAU in the beginning, and then it was all Maryland for the rest of the way. I think FAU only scored a touchdown and a field goal at most, and that should be what we expect here against the Huskies. NIU struggled last weekend. Forgetting who it was, a Holy Cross. It was like 19-16 or something like that. Yeah, not a good start for that MAC school, and it's going to be an even worse start as they will play again a Big Ten team that they most likely get bodied by, unfortunately. But at least it's good for the Terps to start off the season, hopefully on a high note. Yeah, I'm not expecting any kind of Husky upset there. Another Friday game, we got Western Illinois at Northwestern. A game that we should expect the Wildcats to bounce back with. As they went down to New Orleans and lost to Tulane in not a good fashion, 23-3. We should expect them again to bounce back, get their season truly started here in week 2 against Western Illinois. Eastern Washington heads over to the blue turf of Boise State, and we all know that there's a reason why the room is blue. And unfortunately, it was a terrible start, absolutely disastrous beginning to the 2025 season for my Broncos, but at least we will get into week 2 with somewhat of an easy dub. Hopefully everything is smooth sailing. Eastern Washington with that red turf over there. Yeah, we're going to be hopefully playing some backups by the end of this one. But yeah, we're easily going to go with Boise. Those are some easy picks, I would say, for Friday. Nothing too special. Maybe the James Madison game versus Louisville will be the fun one to tune into. I think that was on going to be on ESPN2 if I'm not mistaken. As we get into the weekends games, here are the morning games. Don't forget we will be doing our morning show over on YT, a little bit like Red Zone. We definitely do, I think, almost more, or if not the same amount of Red Zone games just in the morning hours or noon, depending on where you are in the country. But we got FIU at Penn State to start this slide out. We are definitely going to go with the Nittany Lions. That's an easy dub. Slam dunk, no problem. Let's keep moving. They ain't going to have no issues with the Golden Panthers coming to town. San Jose State heads over to Austin, Texas to take on the Longhorns, who started off the season 0-1, went to the shoe. They will definitely be coming back this upcoming week and having themselves a good time, I think. They don't drop too far down, as we're already kind of getting sneak peeks to our new top 25, because yeah, we really like this defense. San Jose State struggled and lost to Central Michigan, who they should have beaten. 2 missed field goals before the end of regulation, 2 chances to win. That's just showing me it's not really in the cards. And on top of that, the defense was pretty sloppy in tackling. We should expect to see that this upcoming weekend against the Longhorns. A big one somewhat. Illinois, or how we like to say it over here at Your Sports Outpost, Illinois, heads over to Durham, North Carolina to take on the Duke Blue Devils. And we're going to take the Fighting Illini. We are very, very high on this program. We love Brett Bielema. We love us some Brett Bielema. I wonder what his favorite dessert is. Must be delicious. Regardless, Illinois going down again to Durham. They will have their way in the trenches. I would expect them to struggle in the first 2 quarters, but again, they're going to be the more physical team. And Bielema just sets up his team for success in general. I was really impressed again last year in that Nebraska game. And they started off real hot. They played Western Illinois, if I'm not mistaken, last week on also a weekday game. This is not a weekday game. It feels like it is in a way, but it isn't. So yeah, I was very impressed with the offense. It put up 53 points. I'm expecting not something near to that, but that 3-point difference at the moment is kind of, again, disrespectful. This is a ranked team. Duke isn't the same. I know they got that new quarterback from Tulane, who should put up a fight, but yeah, this is not going to be how it went when Duke went over to Northwestern and got a win out of there. It's not going to be the same kind of show here. Illinois all the way. East Texas A&M Commerce is Texas A&M Commerce is the old name. They changed it recently to East Texas A&M this past year. They're heading down to Tallahassee, Florida to take on the newly ranked Florida State Seminoles. And yeah, it should be all Seminoles. It would be just a fun blast if Tallahassee came away disappointed, but it's not going to happen. It'll eventually will, just like for the Miami program out of Florida. They have some interesting road tests that not a lot of people are really looking at. They're just celebrating from last weekend. Hopefully they don't get hungover, as East Texas A&M played SMU and got obliterated, and we should expect them to also get obliterated by the Seminoles this upcoming weekend. And then that far right corner, which is going to be our morning game over again on YT, Iowa at Iowa State. This is going to be just a slugfest, to be quite honest with you. We'll get into it again a little bit more in depth, but I guess the sprinkle I can tell you about is Rocco Beck is definitely going to be the difference in this game and getting the Cyclones the win. It's a 3-point spread at the moment in favor of Iowa State. They're at home, but you would also think the Hawkeyes want to bounce back after losing in Iowa City last year to their in-state rivals and taking home the Cy-Hawk Trophy as well. That's another biggie in between these two, again, of the great corn state of Iowa. And yeah, we're going to go Iowa State. Again, we'll dive into it a little bit more towards the end of the stream. Baylor at SMU. This is another biggie I think a lot of people are sleeping on. I know the Waco Bears just lost this past weekend to Auburn. It was very unfortunate because SMU would have wanted them to get that home dub to come into Dallas and then, use their own speed like Auburn did over Baylor. That's kind of also why we're going with SMU. On top of that, their offensive line is just as physical, just as I think the whole line is basically all former SEC program players. Technically, some of them were at like Oklahoma and Texas when they're in the Big 12, but you kind of catch my drift there. That same kind of idea. I get that Baylor has a lot of experience coming back this season, but that experience against some very, very talented pony players. I really like the backfield as well. Again, this is one of our in-depth games we will preview going into this upcoming weekend and talk about it a little bit more. But, Kevin Jennings, give me some more Kevin Jennings, and that's why we're going with the ponies. Indiana taking on Kennesaw State. The Owls had put up a good fight against Wake Forest. I'm not expecting that to happen here in Bloomington, Indiana. And Kirk Cignetti should be getting into his Hoosiers for somewhat of a disappointing debut into 2025 for at least this version of his, Indiana team. Wasn't a good start. They were a bit sloppy, but the offense should be as explosive as it should be on paper. Fernando Mendoza is going to get going, I think, this weekend. It wasn't a pretty game against Old Dominion last week. They were down 7-0 to start off the game, and then it was just them eventually coming back and then going away with it. But we should expect also this Indiana defense to be getting and setting up their offense with some turnovers and great field position. And yeah, we're definitely going to go with Indiana. Then we move on to that middle row. I think it's almost basically dead center. Texas hosting Kent State. And yeah, we are not going to go with Kent State. They did break their 21-game losing streak, but the new losing streak for the Flashes begins in Lubbock. Unfortunately, Red Raiders, they're one of the highest scoring first half, first quarter teams in all of the country. I want to go and try to look up the new stats that are getting inputted. Unfortunately, Texas Tech and North Texas haven't been inputted with their first games to see where they are in the rankings. So I think next weekend we'll talk about that a little bit more, as they're one of the fastest scoring teams again in the country, and that's why we're going Red Raiders. Minnesota hosts Northwestern State, and the Golden Gophers had a pretty good outing. I'm trying to remember who it was out. I think out of the Sun Belt. No, it was Buffalo out of the MAC, who got to them at times. I'm expecting this one not to be the same because it's an FCS opponent. I mean, not that far from a MAC opponent, to be quite honest with you, but Golden Gophers should be improving, especially with that defense. That's kind of like the bread and butter over there for Coach Fleck and his Golden Gophers again. So yeah, definitely going Minnesota. This is a very, very interesting game we have on the slide here, and that's Virginia at North Carolina State, or NC State for short. And we're actually going against the grain. This is one of, again, the few we have week by week where we're like, well, let's risk it for the biscuit. We want to get that extra dub. We want to prove ourselves right. Cavaliers. Yes, we're taking the Cavaliers over the Wolfpack. It's only 2.5 point spread at the moment. NC State didn't look so good against ECU last week. Even though ECU always puts up a fight once they come out with the Wolfpack. Kind of still won. Those dirty Pirates, again, of East Carolina. Here, Virginia had a great outing against Coastal Carolina. There was an amazing catch that we had in our top 10 plays that we showed you guys on Mondays for the Aftermath Week 1 show. And yeah, we really like this offense, which is weird. I haven't been much of high on the Cavaliers whatsoever since we've started this show. But maybe this is the year where everything turns around. And yeah, we're going to risk it for the biscuit and go with Virginia there. As we keep moving down this, we got Central Michigan at Pitt. Pitt is going to win. Simple as that. Central Michigan almost lost to... No. They won, but they almost lost to San Jose State. They just don't seem to know how to get the job done in games, and that's also why we're definitely not going to be surprising anyone but picking the Chippewas, because yeah, Pitt is Pitt. They have a veteran quarterback over there. Not too high on them in the ACC. They usually start off pretty hot, and then yeah, once they get to actual real teams in like not a good conference, which is the Atlantic Coast one, yeah, they tend to fall apart. But it won't be this week. But it'll be fun. It'll also be fun if they made it a game between them and the Chippewas there at Heinz Field. But yeah, Pitt. Syracuse hosting UConn. We got a little bit of a Northeast programs going at it there. We're definitely not going with the Huskies. They blew out Central Connecticut State. Syracuse had a rough start against Tennessee, who is, I would say, somewhat legit, or going to be legit eventually. They just have to prove it against against a more powerful, more legit opponent, which is going to be Georgia actually next weekend. For the Orange though, I really liked Angeli. I really did. Yeah, they moved the ball, even though they were down against Tennessee, somewhat well, and we're going to expect that to happen this upcoming weekend. They did lose a lot this past off season, and it looks like Coach Fran Brown, I think is his name, has done a decent job in getting his team prepared. They just weren't prepared enough against an SEC opponent in the Volunteers. They will be more than ready to go up against UConn. They're 6.5 point favorites. It might be a little bit more, to be quite honest with you on that end the score line after this weekend. We got Jack State versus Liberty. We got a lot of interesting conference. I know that Virginia North Carolina State game is not a conference game. There's some other conference play going on this weekend. I think this, I believe, is also one. Again, Jack State hosting Liberty. this is one where we're going to go against the grain, baby. Flames, they weren't too hot. They weren't too hot last weekend. I'm forgetting who they played. It was an FCS opponent, 28 to like 17 or 14. Yeah, that's not good enough. We are losing faith over there in, I think it's what, Lynchburg, Virginia. And Jack State actually looked pretty solid against UCF, who is a far better opponent than who Liberty played last week. And yeah, we're going to go against the grain there. Liberty is favored by 6.5. We think this is going to be a very, very, very close game. And it'll also kind of be the tipping point where Liberty is kind of like in the middle of the pack there for Conference USA. There's some teams I think that are going to be a lot better than the Flames here in 2025. And that's why we're going with Jacksonville State. Texas A&M hosts Utah State. Bronco Mendenhall coming to College Station. We'll see if he can get his Aggies in order to come up against some real Aggies in Mike Elko and Texas A&M, who had a little bit of a shaky start against UTSA, who were, coming back because, I mean, they're roadrunners for a reason, right? But eventually were put away. I was somewhat impressed with Marcel Reed with his ball distribution through the air. We'll have to see. Then next weekend they play Notre Dame. Hopefully they're not looking forward to that game in South Bend, as the Fighting Irish are, I think, one of the, if not the only team with the bye for week 2. Yeah, we won't be talking about any Notre Dame football this weekend or for this show. But yeah, Texas A&M should be winning that one very easily against that Mountain West opponent. Utah State, who did they play this past weekend and lost to? I can't remember. Regardless, yeah, Utah State's definitely not going to be winning this one. No, they lost to, no, they beat UTEP. If I'm remembering, there's so many games that happened this past weekend. They played UTEP. They won not so clean, and they're not going to be winning this game whatsoever. Wake Forest hosts Western Carolina. That's what that helmet is representing there. We're going to go with the Demon Deacons. They barely got out alive. Oh, boy. That was just a bad start against Kennesaw State, who we just talked about. And this game might be a little shaky. I'm not going to say Wake Forest is going to get upsetted, but expect it to be an ugly game for the Demon Deacons over there under that new regime, which eventually will maybe get it right. Well, I mean, fingers crossed if you're a Wake Forest fan. I don't think there's very many of you. But yeah, Wake Forest, hopefully you win that one. Please don't do that. We got Howard taking on Temple over there in Philly. Temple did the job for us. Shout out Owls. We went with them over UMass, who was favored by 2.5, and they more than covered that, which was not that it wasn't surprising, but it was like, okay, good on the Owls. Good start to the season. They should be beating UMass. It's one of the worst programs in the FBS. You're going to have a 2-0 start for sure. They host, if I'm not mistaken, Oklahoma next weekend in Philly. So let's say I already saw some scenarios on social media of like Oklahoma beating Michigan. Game day for some reason will be going to Philadelphia, or at least it was pitched out on like a random post that I don't even remember who did. But that would be hilarious if that was the case. But yeah, Temple should be getting the win there. They're improving. Idaho State at New Mexico in Albuquerque. Originally when I made this graphic, I was like, let's go Idaho State. I know they just went 0-2, lost last week to a fellow FCS opponent, but unfortunately they lost their quarterback. And finding out that news, Jordan Cook, who had that double pass touchdown against UNLV in that great fight, where they came up short there in Alliance Stadium. Here they're definitely going to come up short again, I think, against New Mexico, who put up also a good fight for themselves over there in Ann Arbor. They were always within a touchdown or 10 points against the Michigan Wolverines, again in the Big House. I was like, what is going on with the Wolverines? Not that I'm like expecting them to lose, but like it shouldn't be a game that close. Again, they're acclimating their new quarterback. That's kind of why maybe New Mexico was allowed to stay in it. But here at home in Albuquerque, they should not be losing consecutive years to an FCS opponent. They did lose to Montana State, but Idaho State is not that. And they're unfortunately going to be losing because, again, I think it was Hawkins, their head coach, just announced again that Jordan Cook, their starting quarterback, will be out extensively. As those are the morning games. This will be the biggest slide for this section, as the noon kickoffs or afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. This will be the biggest block of games this upcoming weekend. You just gotta love that there's 25 loaded for you, ready to go. All you gotta do is tune in to whatever channel you have, as we'll start with that top row. Ohio State hosting Grambling State. That is going to be an absolute massacre, and we'll finally get to see good old Jeremiah Smith get some big yardage, big plays. Carnell Tate, Ennis, Quincy Porter, the freshman, CJ Donaldson, Peoples, those two running backs there will be getting a lot of big plays here against Grambling State. It's going to be an absolute slaughter there in the shoe. And finally, I guess Buckeye fans get to see their offense score more than 14 points, because it was an absolute defensive clinic, I would say, between the Longhorns and the Buckeyes last weekend in that big showdown to start off the 2025 season, which they did come out on top with. Moving on, we got Georgia hosting Austin P. The Austin P, I think they're Colonels. I think that's the mascot, because you got a little Monopoly guy looking dude right there. They beat Middle Tennessee State in one of the few games where an FCS team got one over an FBS opponent. They will not be doing that here in Athens. That would not. No. Because Georgia, I think, is going back to somewhat their old ways. Hopefully going to be rushing it a ton, especially when they come up against Tennessee's. They've had like two good primer games to get that game ready for the one in Knoxville at Neyland Stadium against the Volunteers. That's just going to be a massive one now, especially where, Joey Aguilar seems like he's going to be a perfect fit to come in and replace Nico Iamaleava. Georgia. Oregon hosting the Cowpokes of Oklahoma State. This one's gonna be a blowout. I'm sorry, Oklahoma State fans. It ain't gonna be close. You're gonna get ghost. And it's gonna be a big dub for Oregon, as I couldn't really go on with any more lyrics there. But yeah, the Ducks. How about them Ducks? Decorian Moore, he is gonna be a guy. I think this season we're gonna see a lot of that true freshman over there in Eugene. He pancaked a DB from Montana State. You gotta love a wide receiver that could put up a block. I'm gonna repeat that I don't know how many times this season, but I love me some blocking, especially from a wide out. And Oklahoma State is also going into this game, I think, with a backup quarterback, Henny, who picked up that injury that we already talked about in the aftermaths. That's just gonna make it even worse for Mike Gundy and his staff going into preparing for this one. But who knows? Maybe it'll be a close game in the first half, but there's no way Oregon doesn't pull away. They just have too much firepower. The tight end, wide receiver, running back positions. Their offensive line is stellar as well. There's no way. And Oklahoma State did have some troubles with their own offensive line, which I'm also expecting Mateo Uiagalelei. He's going to be eating real good this upcoming weekend in Eugene. Clemson host Troy. The Tigers had that unfortunate loss against LSU this past weekend. We did our watch along there. That was a legit defense. One of the, I think, surprisingly best defenses we're going to see this upcoming season out of Baton Rouge. Troy doesn't have that. Simple as that. Kate Klubnik gets his offensive stats going, along with that somewhat okay, stellar wide receiver core that's not too stellar against elite defenses. Clemson. Ole Miss at Kentucky. Ooh, that's going to be an interesting one in Lexington. I thought the line was very, very surprising because it's -10 for the Rebels. I was like, did we not watch this game last season? And I mean, Kentucky didn't start off so well against Toledo. Again, we're going to talk about this a little bit more extensively in our preview section, the bigger one, even though this is the biggest one. But yeah, that was a eyebrow raiser. Even though, again, Ole Miss and that just really quick offense does not take a break or a breather or allow their opponents to, get that inhale, exhale. It's almost like they snap the ball's down, and they're already back on, ready to go. This offense is just super quick. We'll see if Kentucky can slow them down. We don't think so. We're going to go with Ole Miss. Again, we'll go into it a little bit more later on in the stream. East Tennessee State heads over to Knoxville, Tennessee, and play in Neyland Stadium against the Tennessee Volunteers, who open up on a neutral site field over at Mercedes-Benz, beating Syracuse, what it was like 45-26. We didn't even preview that one, even though it was kind of like somewhat of a high profile in week one. We knew the Tennessee Volunteers were going to get it done. They're obviously going to get it done here against East Tennessee State. Hopefully they're not looking ahead just like Georgia is, as those two will meet up next week and they're opening SEC matchups. Oh, the next one. We have the return of the border war for the first time since 2011. Missouri hosts Kansas in Columbia. Number 23 heading in up against an unranked Jayhawks team that's already 2-0. The Missouri Tigers are 6.5-point favorites. I mean, we're going to go with that. We like the offense. We love the offensive line. It's probably going to be one of the best in the Southeastern Conference. Kansas, I just don't think the opponents that they played were legit enough, and they're going to run into this problem that Auburn, and again, we're going to talk about this one a little bit more because it's a big one this upcoming weekend, that Auburn ran into with that SEC opponent in Auburn. Yeah, same case, same problems. It doesn't really matter if you've had a roster that's been playing with each other. If they're just not talented enough to handle these SEC big boys, then you're going to get your cheek slapped. And maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't. Probably not, because we're going to be right on that one. Missouri winning there at home. Rutgers taking on Miami of Ohio. Scarlet Knights. It is Ohio. We did predict the Bobcats will come in, make it a game. I didn't think it was going to be that close of a game. I thought it would have been like 10, maybe 14 points. Ended up being 3. And, Miami of Ohio didn't score a single point last week against Wisconsin. They're in Madison. The Badgers played some pretty good defense, not a good offense. But here for Rutgers, we'll see. I don't really like the Scarlet Knights quarterback, Callie McManus. Even when he was at Minnesota, I haven't been too high on him. And we might see a game where they struggle. I don't see Miami, Ohio winning. It is -15 for, again, Rutgers in this one. That one's a little bit of an eyebrow raiser because, who's setting these lines up? And, did you not see that MAC opponent that just came into town? Made it a fight, and it's definitely going to be a fight against the Redhawks. Just don't think the Redhawks are going to win, but they might. They might at least cover their end on that -15, which would be +15 for them technically. Fresno heading over to Corvallis to take on the Oregon State Beavers. Oregon State, they got their booties clapped last weekend against Cal. True freshman quarterback comes into town. Was not expecting Sagapolu to have that kind of a debut. That guy is a lot better than I thought he was. True freshman quarterback there out of Hawaii, playing for the Berkeley Bears. But for Oregon State, very disappointed in Malik Murphy. And Fresno State has already gotten 2 under their belt this season. They bounced back with a very impressive win against Georgia Southern. It was 42 to 15 or 16, something like that. Matt Ince, he's going to score some points here, I think, in Corvallis. Oregon State struggled last year when they played these Mountain West schedule. That was kind of like last minute because of all the shakeup with the conference realignment. And yeah, we should see things shake up. Fresno State should make it a fight, and we're going to go with the Valley Dogs. This is another one of the few that we're going against the grain in terms of who's being favored. Oregon State was favored by like 2.5 against Cal. This week it's -3. We think Fresno State is going to get the, I guess you can call it upset, but they're going to be, conference foes after this upcoming season in the new Pac-12 in 2026. So maybe it's like Fresno State just kind of acclimating themselves to beating the Beavers, maybe quite often. As we'll move on from that one, we got Gardner Webb heading down to Atlanta to take on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. And yeah, the Yellow Jackets should be winning that one. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Very impressive win against Colorado in Boulder last week. Yeah, can't really say much until they play, I think, Clemson. Is that next weekend or is it the weekend after? I can't remember. Regardless, they got Clemson pretty soon. Bowling Green, as we're over to this left column, middle of the pack. And that's Bowling Green again heading over to Cincinnati. The Bearcats start off the season 0-1, losing in Arrowhead against Nebraska. Very, very close game. Sorsby will be going off in this game against the Falcons. Who opened up? Who did Bowling Green beat? I know it was an FCS team. Wasn't crazy. And yeah, this shouldn't be that much of a contest, to be quite honest with you. I think Cincinnati is going to be pretty good. They took Nebraska to their limits, and they will again kind of start their season here in week 2, going 1-1 for sure. Colorado, off of that 0-1 start that we just talked about with Georgia Tech, they host the Delaware Blue Hens, the new boys at the FBS level. The Blue Hens beat Delaware State, 35-17 or something like that. Yeah, it's not going to happen. There's no way Coach Prime falls apart this early into the season, even though there were some issues last week where they could have gotten that opening season win at home. You don't like it. You don't like to see it. They should again be ready to go here in week 2, get that easy dub against the new boys again to the FBS out of Conference USA. Let's go Puffs. Appalachian State hosts Lindenwood. That's what that helmet represents. It's pretty cool. It looks like the Detroit Lions with different colors. Lindenwood, they played Kansas last year. Yeah, they got their Chiefs clap cheeks there. Here, maybe not. Maybe it's a little closer, or at least they score a little bit more. But yeah, we're going definitely Mountaineers, who opened up the season against Charlotte over at the Panther Stadium in Charlotte. And yeah, App State all the way. Here we go into a very interesting one as well. And another one where we're going to go against the grain and risk it for the biscuit. Texas State at UTSA. Games in San Antonio. The Roadrunners are favored by 4 at the moment. Kind of an interesting line. I think it's going to be a slugfest between the two. We're going to go, again, risk it for the biscuit. Texas State. They opened up the year against Eastern Michigan. Pretty decent win. Again, this program's progressing. They'll be playing in the Pac-12 next year. So they're, trying to at least get themselves ready. They have to definitely prove it against a team like UTSA, who was also kind of rumored to join that conference. But it looks like the Texas team is going to be Texas State, and that's why we're going to go with them Cats out of San Marcos. Last one on this row, right column, all the way to the right, we got UAB heading over to Annapolis to take on the Navy Midshipmen. Yeah, we're going to go Midshipmen. There's no way they lose this game. They had their way with the Virginia Military Institute Cadets. And I'm kind of feeling that they're going to have their way with UAB. The Blaze Opened up the season against Alabama State. Only won by 10 points. It was 52-42. And that's just a good indicator that Navy's offense is going to score a decent amount of points. I don't know about 42 points, but maybe it's more in the low 30s, high 20s. And their defense is definitely going to be shutting down anything UAB has to offer. Yeah, Navy. North Texas heads over to Western Michigan. I don't know the actual hometown of the Broncos out of the MAC, but they'll play Western Michigan over in that part of the state. North Texas. We talked about that with Texas Tech. One of the fastest scoring teams in all of college football. Whoever they play, they're going to be going at it in that air raid offense. And they definitely raided last week. I'm forgetting who they played off the top of my head. Scored a decent amount of points. They'll be doing that again against Western Michigan here against this MAC team. It's -10 in favor of the Big Mean Green. Might be a little bit more than that, to be quite honest with you, because Western Michigan. Oh, Michigan State. That's right. Oh, yeah. There we go. Now it's all coming back. 23-6. They did hurt the opposing team's quarterback. I think that was the only kind of positive. They had a pretty gnarly catch in there. Yeah, but it wasn't much of anything. They turned the ball over a decent amount, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Yeah, Mean Green for sure. They're definitely going to be getting things going there in the great state of Michigan. St. Francis heads over to Buffalo, New York to take on the Bulls. This MAC team will at least win for sure. St. Francis opened up again against an FBS opponent. Another one that I'm just not remembering off the top of my head because there's so many games. This week there's like 82. Last week there was 91. So I guess, yeah, you can't cram that all in your head at once. But regardless, we're going to go Bulls. They had a decent game again to open up against Minnesota. They'll be getting their first win here in week 2 against St. Francis, who has a pretty gnarly helmet. Just these kind of alternate NFL kind of decals on with different color schemes are pretty awesome. I kind of like that St. Francis Bolt helmet there. As we keep moving, we got Bryant heading over to Massachusetts to take on the Minutemen of UMass. UMass should be winning this one. Bryant, they played New Mexico State, and it wasn't too impressive a win for the Aggies. We should see somewhat of a good fight out of, again, Bryant. But UMass should be barely winning this one at home. As we continue over almost to the right side of the rows here, Wisconsin takes on Middle Tennessee State. The Badgers should be having more than a good defense to shut out Middle Tennessee State, as hopefully they're not looking forward to their week 3 matchup in Tuscaloosa against Alabama because of what happened in Tallahassee. There's just a lot of different angles to where they maybe fall asleep here, but Middle Tennessee State lost to Austin Peay up here, who's taking on Georgia. It was a very, very disappointing outing. They were down throughout that game and basically, I don't want to say got dominated, but outclassed against a team that they shouldn't be getting outclassed by. But it's also Conference USA as where they come out of, and they are hopefully going to be blown out by Wisconsin and get us a nice big old dove to add to our win column here at your Sports Outpost. West Virginia. This was a little bit of surprising. They're going over to Ohio to take on the Bobcats on the road. They're very interesting scheduling there. The Mountaineers are only favored by -3.5. I know Ohio put up a really good fight against Rutgers, but I think West Virginia is a hell of a lot better than the Scarlet Knights. There is Parker Navarro. You got to give him some credit. He put up a great performance last week to open up the season in that disappointing loss where they almost got a big road win But this upcoming weekend, the boat race comes to town, and yeah, West Virginia is going to be winning that. Even though they might pass it a little bit more, we'll see. Rich Rod starting off his season last week with a decent win. They'll take it, move on, and they go into here week 2 against a very, very tough MAC team. This is a program that's always been competitive with whoever they come up against. Putting up good fights, producing pretty decent quarterbacks as well. If you don't remember, Rook out of Indiana last year, he comes from Ohio, played there for a couple of seasons. I think even won them a bowl game. But yeah, we're definitely going to go with West Virginia. I was very surprised to see that lineup -3.5. As we move now to the bottom row, and we're going to start with that left column. Northern Iowa heads over to Laramie, Wyoming to take on the Cowboys. We're going to go Wyoming. Hopefully they get the job done. They played Akron last week on the road, 10-0. I think we're going to get that kind of similar feel here. Maybe be like 13-0, something like that. It's kind of where I'm feeling. Not that Northern Iowa is a great team. They're coming from the FCS, but they're very close to, I would say, an Akron program. So we should also see a similar kind of scoreline. Unless Wyoming blows them away, I would be actually a little surprised by that. As we go, Gators hosting the USF Bulls in Gainesville, Florida. Has an interesting test ahead of them. They are -18 favorites going up against the team out of the American there. Yeah, that line, I don't think it's going to hold. I think that's USF's going to definitely cover that. They would be +18. I don't know if they're going to win it, though. That's my problem. They opened up the season again against Boise. I think they kind of threw some haymakers there to allow them to win 34-7. Even though that score line could have been closer, but also could have been a lot uglier if things didn't go their way completely in terms of getting that 34-7. They have somewhat of an issue of fumbling the ball, and against a Florida team that's a little bit better, a lot better in terms of on paper recruiting talent. So those balls might not bounce their way if they are to again drop the ball, and that's why we're kind of going with Florida here. It's unfortunate that it'll be somewhat of a reality check for South Florida, but I think that's going to be kind of a good thing because they got Miami next weekend. Maybe that's the kind of game they sneak. This one I don't see happening. Florida's offensive line pretty solid. Kind of want to see more of the running game against a legit team. We'll see. South Florida did shut down Boise State in the trenches. I just don't think they have enough of a surprising element to go up against Florida this upcoming weekend in Gainesville. But dude, that would be hilarious. I would laugh so hard if USF can get that win. They would definitely be a ranked team after this upcoming weekend if they get that big win again in Gainesville. But we're not going with them. We're going with the Gators. Arkansas State heads over to their in-state foe, Arkansas, in Fayetteville. That's northwest Arkansas area. I've been there. Stadium's pretty nice. People are pretty chill down there in downtown Fayetteville. It's almost like a little mini Las Vegas or New Orleans kind of vibe, if you get what I'm saying there. Regardless, it's going to be the Razorbacks. A little bit of a slow start against Alabama A&M, but Taylon Green, very talented player, should be giving the Red Wolves a nice big issue. Arkansas State played against an FCS opponent who I'm not remembering off the top of my head. Was very impressed with the result there, but here they will not be getting the upset win against Arkansas. Let's go Razorbacks. Sacramento State at Nevada. Wolfpack opened up the year in Happy Valley, losing, was it like 52-11? Just completely overwhelmed Purdy's little brother, poor guy, had to go up against that Penn State defensive line, threw an interception into one of their defensive linemen. But here against Sacramento State, who has had not a good launch to 2025, and it's going to be even worse, as we're expecting them maybe lose a little heavily here, and Nevada get their season going here in week 2 with a 1-1 record. Let's go Wolfpack. Then the final game on the slide, we got Jackson State at Southern Miss. And yeah, we're going Golden Eagles. Very, very impressed against Mississippi State, even though Mississippi State is a bottom team in the SEC. But it is a Sun Belt program going through a transition, new regime coming in from Marshall, who just won the Sun Belt Conference last year, and a bunch of players in that mass exodus heading over to, again, Southern Miss. They ain't missing this week. Let's go Southern Miss to win. As that was the biggest slides, we're going to get through the early afternoon games here, or I would expect maybe later afternoon if you're on the East Coast, as we got Cal Poly San Luis Obispo heading over to Salt Lake City to take on the Utah Utes, who had a massive blowout win in the Rose Bowl against UCLA. This defense looks like it's just going to be slapping, pounding, just putting teams away, not allowing teams to do what they want. Obviously, this is a nice little appetizer for what's to come in this Big 12 season for the Utes, who are, I think, putting themselves as favorites to win the conference, or at least get to that conference championship game. Depends on some results, obviously, later on this season. Just wanted to say that. Obviously, the Utes are going to be winning there. Love me some Devin Dampier. Cal hosts Texas Southern. Cal plays football, guys. The Cal Berkeley Bears. They play football up there. And I'm very impressed with that road win against Oregon State in Corvallis. They're going to go 2-0 against Texas Southern. Nice big road win for week 1 for the Berkeley Bears. Marshall hosts Missouri State, the other new boy to the FBS level. The Thundering Herd. I mean, they went to Athens, Georgia to take on the Bulldogs. What did you expect? They're not a chance in hell. Maybe if the coaching staff that we just talked about that headed down to Southern Miss was still in the program, still calling shots there, maybe it would have been a fight, but they definitely would have lost. Not by much, maybe. Here it's an interesting one. The Thundering Herd are only favored by 9.5. Missouri State got, there's not a word I think you could describe what happened there in Southern Cal at the LA Coliseum. 73-10 or 13. Those poor Missouri State fans watching that game. They probably stopped watching after like the second quarter. The USC Trojans running away with that. I would expect this one to be a lot closer. Marshall, both these programs basically got blown out last weekend. Marshall should be starting off their season here in week 2, going 1-1, and unfortunately Missouri State, not a good start to jumping up to this level, and we'll see more, I think, in conference play, or I think maybe there's an easier opponent after this. Regardless, Marshall. Old Dominion hosts North Carolina Central. The Monarchs made it a very tough game against Indiana in Bloomington. They will be starting off 1-1 after week 2 here against North Carolina State or Central. They just beat in week 0 in that like SWAC, MEC, or whatever they call it. I don't know the acronyms for those FCS conferences. They played Southern and kind of had their way. They're definitely not going to be doing that against the Monarchs out of the American. Let's go Old Dominion. Far right column, top row, we got East Carolina hosting Campbell. The Camels. Not a chance. East Carolina definitely getting their first win as they got a tough road loss against NC State. They'll be bouncing back here in week 2. Another team bouncing back, we got Florida Atlantic hosting Florida A&M. That's what that helmet represents. Pretty cool little rattler there. Yeah, the Owls will get their first win of the season hosting that in-state foe out of the FCS. Miami also playing an in-state foe in Bethune-Cookman. Who did Cookman play last week? Cannot remember off the top of my head. I know they did. They definitely didn't win, and this game might get ugly. Carson Beck just warming up. This was a very interesting thing I think I heard recently is that Miami doesn't leave the state of Florida for like a while for any of their games. Later down the line, it's going to be interesting in ACC play when they go away from Florida. We'll see how they do, and maybe that's where they fall apart, because that's kind of where I'm predicting them and the Seminoles and their downfalls here in 2025. But pretty big win, 27-24. They almost blew it, but they got away with that big win against Notre Dame there at Hard Rock. Well, let's go Miami easily. South Carolina hosts South Carolina State there in Columbia. The Gamecocks open up the season against Virginia Tech. A very slow start on offense. You had some big plays on special teams, but it was that defense that really held the line. And that's kind of what we should expect out of South Carolina in general. Probably the best bookends there on the defensive line. Scary enough to get to you. Should be giving South Carolina State's offensive coordinator some nightmares after this weekend. Yes, let's go Gamecocks. As we keep moving, the team that disappointed us, North Carolina. We didn't even bother. We said, I think on the aftermath, we'll do a nice little review real quick of North Carolina at TCU or hosting TCU in Chapel Hill, but it was 48-14 against the Horned Frogs. Didn't even seem like they tried. The defense very weak in coverage. Just too much cushion there. Allowed too many big plays, sloppy tackling, sloppy positioning. Should not be the case when they go down to take on the 49ers of Charlotte. They will get their first win of the season, and Coach Belichick will be getting his first collegiate win as a head coach again against the 49ers, who didn't do so well against Appalachian State last week. Let's keep moving. We got Army heading over to Manhattan, Kansas to take on the Kansas State Wildcats. Interesting line here, -17 for Kansas State. Army had a rough takeoff to the 2025 season, losing to Tarleton State at home in double overtime, 30-27. Kansas State also had a rough takeoff to their home season opener to North Dakota, barely getting by with the skin of whatever it was. Whatever it is, it's not looking good. It doesn't really matter how far we can go in with Kansas State. It was very disappointing. They are not ranked after last week. They were staying to be ranked with the opener in Dublin, Ireland, but no, not after this week. That was super disappointing. Maybe Army puts up a fight, but the -17 might be a little insulting because Kansas State did not look good against North Dakota whatsoever. But we're still going to go with them. They should be winning by a very small margin, we think, here at Your Sports Outpost. Houston takes on their in-city rival, Rice. That's a very interesting one. We're going to go with the Owls. I think I might have messed. Maybe this is this week's one where I messed up on the graphic. I should have put Houston. But we'll roll with the Owls. They did win against UL Lafayette by 2 points. If the Owls were to win here, it's going to be by slim margins as well. Connor Wegman, pretty good start to the season there as they open up 1-0. Maybe they drop to 1-1. We're gonna do the low YOLO and go with Rice there, as I think that was the only one we messed up on the graphic. It's fine. If we add an L, we're going to get a ton more dubs here this week. UCF hosts North Carolina A&T. That's what that helmet represents. UCF. What happened? What happened last week? Bad outing against it wasn't Kennesaw State. I cannot remember off the. Let me scroll back real quick. What was it? Which one of these teams was it? Jacksonville State. That's who it was. I know it was Conference USA. I was just like, what Conference USA team did they play? Yeah, too close, especially at home in the Boom House. This is obviously going to be a win for sure for the Golden Knights, but a little alarming. They are definitely going to be one of the bottom teams in the Big 12. It feels like going already into this season, but they're going to win. They're going to win. Okay, don't worry about that. Toledo hosting Western Kentucky. This is going to be one of the most entertaining games I think this upcoming weekend. We got Conference USA versus the MAC there. I don't want to go against my Big Red. Shout out Big Red, the mascot of Western Kentucky. But Toledo is favored by 7.5. They put up a really good fight against Kentucky last week, which is kind of funny. They're playing another Kentucky team, but it's at home in Ohio for the Rockets. And that's kind of why we're leaning towards them. This is going to be the best team that Western Kentucky plays. They opened up the year against Sam Houston State and was very impressive. But this is where, yeah, we think they come up a little short. I think that 7.5 is a little generous for the Rockets. That's why we're still going with the Rockets, but not by that much. Let's go Toledo. Colorado State hosts Northern Colorado. Yeah, Colorado State. They shouldn't be losing that game. They were somewhat impressive against Washington, but it might not be a good Washington team as well. Yeah, let's go Rams. Georgia State. Okay, I think this is another one where I messed up on the graphic. It's fine. I guess we're going to get 2 L's because of the Rice and Houston game. I should have double checked. It's fine. Host Memphis. This could also be a game where Georgia State bounces back. They didn't have too bad of a game against Ole Miss. I know they didn't score much. They did cause a lot of mistakes. That could happen here against Memphis in a new era post Seth Hennigan, who's now in the NFL. They're a great quarterback for I don't know how many seasons now. But yeah, Memphis should have a pretty decent game here. Again, it's a new era. The offense isn't the same as it has been. You know, Memphis a couple of seasons ago, they had that upset. No, it was last season actually, where they beat Florida State. But yeah, they should be good a good fight against Georgia State. The Panthers last year at home in Atlanta, they beat Vanderbilt a week or two before the Commodores went and had that generational upset against Alabama. So yeah, let's go Georgia State for fun. Tulane at South Alabama. The Green Wave, if you notice, they are ranked. They are minus 10.5 point favorites. Yeah, I think they're definitely going to cover. They had a very impressive win against Northwestern. That defense, super solid, only giving up a field goal against a Big Ten opponent. That's some good stuff. Jacob Retzlaff looks like he's going to be taking off really well down there in New Orleans. Let us go with Tulane. They are now, I think, in the driver's seat to be representing the group of 5 in the college football playoffs. And on top of that, favorites in the American, as USF might also be one of those teams up there with them. As the last game on the slide, Eastern Michigan versus Long Island University. The Eagles head down to San Marcos, Texas. They lost, but it wasn't the worst outing, I would say. You're on the road. You're playing in a totally different time zone that you're usually playing in. There's not a lot of late games. It's only more in the midweeks for the MAC Nation teams that when they're usually playing. So like on a Saturday night, it's a little different, kind of unexpected. We should also not unexpectedly see Eastern Michigan fall against Long Island, who got obliterated by Florida this past week in Gainesville. Eastern Michigan gets their first win and go 1-1 to end this slide and go out of week 2 with. As we got 2 more slides. We are into the late afternoon or nightcap games, depending on where you are in the country. We have Louisiana Tech heading to Baton Rouge to take on a top 10 LSU team. I was going to say Louisiana State for some reason. Yeah, the Bayou Bengals. Great defense. We should see that great defense completely obliterate the visiting Bulldogs. Even though Louisiana Tech hasn't given up a single point so far this year, they beat Southeastern Louisiana 34-0. Here they'll be getting their first loss, and LSU will be going 2-0. Let's keep moving. Arizona State heads down to SEC country, specifically Starkville, to take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. We're going to go a little bit more extensively with our preview with this one, but we're going to definitely go Arizona State. They're favored by -6.5. Last year, the game was a 7-point difference. It's probably going to be in and around that range as well. Arizona State is definitely going to be making some mistakes. They might struggle, but they're going to get that big SEC win. The Big 12 definitely needs this one and not see Arizona State fall there in Starkville. Let's go Sun Devils. Michigan, another big one, and again that we're going to be talking a little bit more at the end of the stream with. We'll head down to Norman, Oklahoma to battle the Sooners at the Palace on the Prairie. Interesting line already with this one. -5 for Oklahoma at home. Very interesting. We're going against the grain, one of the few ones. Technically, that last slide, we had two that we made mistakes on with the graphic, but we're going to roll with it. Here, we're rolling with the Wolverines. We really, really like the offensive line, what they do in the trenches. The defense is just as good as it was last year. I would say maybe a little bit better in the front end. Some way, somehow. You know, you lose Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant to the NFL. Those guys are generational Wolverine players. But they look just as solid. A lot of tackles for loss. We'll talk about that again in the extensive review. Let's go Michigan. Auburn hosts Ball State. Yeah, that's now Auburn all the way. Let's keep going. They just beat Baylor. Ball State, if I'm not mistaken, also went 1-0, but they'll be getting their loss added to that column when they head down to Auburn. Vandy heads over to Virginia Tech, take on the Hokies. This is I think the closest margin going into this week, -1 in favor for Virginia Tech. Could put up a decent fight against South Carolina. They just didn't have the talent that the Gamecocks have. Vanderbilt, though, they snuck this one kind of last year at home. If I'm not mistaken, it was an overtime win in this home and home series that's been going between the last two seasons. That's including this one. But yeah, we're gonna go Virginia Tech. I think Kyron Jones, somewhat impressive. They just didn't score enough points. The offense just couldn't get it going. I think they'll have everything in them to again get a big win for the ACC over the SEC. Is this the tipping point where Vanderbilt starts to fall off and go back to the old ways of what the Commodores kind of have been the last 10 years? We'll see. But yeah, we're going to go Hokies. Akron heads over to Nebraska. The Zips, they didn't give up a lot of points against Wyoming, but this is Nebraska. Cornhuskers got their opening season win against Cincinnati at Arrowhead. They will be going 2-0. This game might get a little bit ugly. There in Lincoln. As we keep moving, we got Georgia Southern making a trip back to California to take on the USC Trojans, who had a big win against Missouri State in their opener. Georgia Southern, they got blown out by Fresno State. They're going to get blown out again here, unfortunately, by, again, the Trojans out of sunny Southern California. Let's go Trojans. Boston College heads over to East Lansing to take on Michigan State. This is another one where we're going against the grain. The Spartans are favored by 4.5. Yeah, we want Boston College. Why? I think they're just a little bit more solid. Michigan State didn't look so good against Western Michigan last week. The offense couldn't score enough points. And on top of that, Aiden Childs looked like he picked up a nick. So he might not be 100% as well in this. A very physical game is what we should expect. And yeah, we're going to go Boston College, get into another one over Michigan State, who haven't beaten the Eagles since Nick Saban was there back in 1996 when he debuted as the Michigan State head coach. It's a long, long time ago, and that streak is going to continue after this one here in week 2. Southern Illinois heads over to Lafayette, Indiana to take on the Purdue Boilermakers. Let's go Purdue. Big win last week. I think it was a shutout win as well. On top of that, they might get another shutout win here in the Barry Odom era, which began 1-0. They will be going 2-0 after this weekend. Though Southern Illinois did beat Northern Illinois last year, or it might have been the year before that. So they do have a game in them, but not this weekend for the Salukis or something like that. I forget what that dog mascot name is, but it's a pretty cool one. We got Charleston Southern heading down to South Carolina to take on Coastal Carolina. Let's go Chandlers. Charleston Southern, they lost last week. They're going to lose again as they play another FBS opponent, and Coastal Carolina will get their opening 2025 win here in week 2. As the last slide, this is the Nightcap games wherever you are. Really, it might be midnight if you're on the East Coast for some of them, especially that Hawaii game, and it might be like 1 in the morning for you. But let's start with UL Monroe heading over to Tuscaloosa, taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. This should be a big bounce back weekend for the Tide. Yeah, the Warhawks, I mean, that was a really long time ago when they beat Alabama. It's not going to happen this upcoming weekend. They also, if I'm not mistaken, lost as well. So yeah, they won't be having a good time there. Alabama, though, on the other hand, will be getting their first win, and we'll have a big week next week against Wisconsin at home somehow, some way. UCLA is on the road. Another one where we're going to go against the grain. They head over to Las Vegas, Nevada to take on the UNLV Running Rebels there in Alliance Stadium. You would think, like, after getting blown out 43-10, like the next week, it's not going to look so pretty. UNLV is not the favorite. UCLA is favored by 2.5 somehow. I know they have Nico now, Iamaliava, but yeah, this UNLV team has a lot of speed. They play some pretty good defense, not against Idaho State to open up the season, but that was week 0. Definitely overlooking their opponents there. They will not be overlooking the Bruins here. And yeah, we're going to go UNLV, and unfortunately UCLA, you don't like to see it, but they might be starting off the season 0-2, and that they haven't even gotten into the Big Ten, which is not a good sign for Deshaun Foster here in 2025. We have the Raging Cajun of UL Lafayette hosting McNeese State. Yeah, let's go Raging Cajun. Came up short against Rice there at home. They will not be coming up short against this FCS team. Tulsa heads down to Santa Fe, New Mexico to take on the New Mexico State Aggies. And yeah, the Hurricanes coming into town, and we're going Tulsa. We talked about it a little bit with Bryant playing whoever it was earlier on the other slides. They brought a game to Mexico State. And yeah, we're going to go Tulsa on the road there. They are favored by 4.5. So that should be a pretty comfortable game. Maybe it's a little bit more between the American and Conference USA there. Weber State heads down to Tucson, Arizona to take on the Wildcats, who should be bearing down. this upcoming weekend. Last year, when they had an FCS team come to town, it was Northern Arizona, and the Lumberjacks almost got it done there. But yeah, let's go Arizona. They somewhat of an impressive win over Hawaii to open up the year. The Rainbow Warriors beat Stanford the week before, so that should say something that this Arizona team is improving under Brett Brennan, and we should expect them again to go 2-0 to start the season. And if I'm not mistaken, they play Kansas State next week at home. Washington State hosts San Diego State. The Aztecs, they break their losing streak last week against Stony Brook. Washington State almost lost at home in the Battle of Palouse to Idaho. Had to win with a field goal there. I think we're getting similar vibes. This game is also just as close as that Virginia Tech. Vandy won -1 in favor of the Cougs. We're going to roll with the Cougs. Hopefully they don't disappoint. I think they should be getting a little bit better. That offense just has to get something going under that new regime there in Pullman. Let's go Washington State. The last of the ranked teams, BYU hosts Stanford there in Provo, Utah. -18 for the Provo Cougs. And that's with a true freshman quarterback who should be playing for Stanford, along with his brother Tiger Bachmeier. Bear Bachmeier and this running attack should be having their way. I'm hoping for some better ball distribution for that young man. Chase Roberts, his brother Tiger, didn't get much of any touches, I felt like. We should expect that to, I think, improve this upcoming week. As Stanford should be a lot better, but not good enough. The -18, what a slap in the face for the Cardinal. And that might hold. As BYU is going to be scoring maybe a lot of points. The defense on top of that going to be lethal and getting turnovers, and that's setting up this very young quarterback with excellent field position. That's what we should expect in that game between the Big 12 and ACC. Last game on this row is UT Martin. That's Tennessee Martin heading over to El Paso, Texas to take on UTEP. Miners unfortunately opened up the season in Logan, Utah with a big L. Malachi Nelson, we thought was going to go off. Just couldn't get things going after those opening drives where they scored a couple. I would say they're going to score a couple more, get this season rolling. I think UTEP still is a player there in Conference USA. Because again, that one player that they have on their team, I don't know. I wonder if that's UTEP's first ever 5-star recruit they've ever gotten. Even though in the portal he's not a 5-star recruit, but at least from when he came out of high school. Because for Boise, if I'm not mistaken, that was also their first time when Malachi Nelson was a Bronco last season. Let's keep going. We have UC Davis playing Washington. We're going to go with UW. Struggled a little bit there with Colorado State, but against UC Davis, not going to be a thing. Hawaii in an interesting matchup hosting Sam Houston State's Micah Alejandro. Not a good outing there in Tucson against Arizona. At home, should be a hell of a lot better. Sam Houston State, well, they start off the season 0-2. Do they get their first win? We don't think so here at Your Sports Outpost. The Rainbow Warriors are favored by -7. I think the defense is going to hold up more of their end of the bargain there. And then Mike Alejandro will have a couple drives where he puts the game away and gets Hawaii a win to go 2-1 and not let themselves down against Sam Houston State there, who's again 0-2. So let's go Rainbow Warriors. As that is it for the quick picks. This is the slide for all of the ranked teams here at Your Sports Outpost. We're going to talk about our new rankings going into week 2 here in a few moments, but again, this is all the ranked teams and who they play that we just went through just on one slide for you there. Last